All right, let's go ahead and look at a few things here. So hopefully when you did your measurement, you got around 0.5, 0.7, 0.85, somewhere in between there, exactly 1, 0.85-ish, 0.7, 0.5, and exactly 0. Now, what I told my students to do is I wanted to know if you're actually sitting on your little circle and you were hanging out at 30 degrees. If you were to, I know this sounds gross, but if you were to spit, where would someone have to be in order for it to land on that? And if you notice, this is 30 degrees here, so if I kind of fold that down like that, this must be 30 degrees here. Now, if you remember, a whole circle is 360, so I really want to subtract from 30. I would get 330 degrees. That would be the spot where this guy here just kind of spits on there, which means that this distance here and this distance here are actually going to be exactly equal, but this is going down. It's below ground, so that would be 0.5. So I did the same thing with 45, and I said, well, if 45 is right here, if I were to spit down here, in other words, this has to be kind of going back 45 degrees to get there, so that would be equal to 315. Again, it's the same distance, but it is in the negative direction. For 60 degrees up here, I would want to go back 60 degrees here to find the spot that I would land kind of perfectly if a little drop of spit fell. So I would subtract from 360, I would get exactly 300. And again, it's the same exact distance as this one, but it just happens to be in the negative. And then I said, all right, well, that's all well and good, but what about if I was right up here at 90? How many degrees would this be? A couple different ways that you can do that. This is 180, so I can add a 90 here, or this is 360, so I can subtract a 90 here. Either way, I get that this is 270 degrees. Now again, this is the full length of 1, but this would be a nice little negative 1. So now I'm over here at the 120. Now 120 is a little different. I have to kind of figure out, like, all right, this is like, so well, I have two options. I could, of course, take 120 and minus 120 to get that same spot. Or I could say this is 120 and this is 180. So this is 60. 180 minus 120 is 60, is this kind of reference angle here. So if I go additional 60 here, I would end up getting 240 degrees. Again, it's the same exact distance, it just happens to be below ground. And then I continue on and do the rest of these, so this would be equal to the 225, the 210. And then this one here, obviously 180, you're spitting on yourself, it's just onto the ground. So we would go ahead and just leave that. So let's go ahead and check out a couple of these guys here. So if one unit is 800 feet, remember this unit here is 800 feet. What we want to do is figure out the distance from the ground at 60. So at 60, if I take 0.85 and multiply it by 800, I would get 696 as my feet. My seat at 90 is the full all the way up to the top here, so that is the full 800. And then my seat at my 210, which is over here, is the distance is 400 because I would take half of my 800, but it is below ground, and so we would indicate negative to indicate the direction of where that would go. All right, so let's go ahead and look at these. These are the cool ones. We're trying to figure out other places that are in the same kind of spot. So 135 we said was at 0.7, and the other places that are the same exact distance from that are in the 4 quadrants. So this here is at 135 at 0.7. So we would have down here, over here, and over here. We would kind of have 4 different spots here. Here would be 45. We see that right here. We also would have 315. And we would also have, 225. So using this little table up here, we actually can figure out what those values are. All right, last one for the front that we're going to look at. So it's stuck. He says that he is 400 feet from the ground, and we're trying to figure out all the different places that he could be located. So remember, 400 feet from the ground is at the 0.5. Remember, it's half of the whole unit. So we would have 150, we would have 30, we'd have 330, and we would have 210. Since he can't see above ground, we assume he's underground. So the 2 that would be underground is the 210 and the 330. And then he says fourth quadrant, and you may or may not know that as you go around the circle, these are the quadrants. This is the order it goes in: 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if it's in this quadrant, 330 is the only one that's actually in that quadrant. So that's where he would be located.